Okay, so welcome to the demonstration side of week 7. So I want to do something a little bit different for this demonstration, something that we haven't done before. I want to do a master copy, and I want to work from this image that we looked at previously in class. Now, I was very careful to ask you to work from life and learn to deal with this ambient lighting scenario that we've discussed, and I stand by that. I want your first drawing for this week for your homework to be from life, but any additional drawings you can do, it would be absolutely fine for one of them to be a master copy, and you're welcome to do that in future homework assignments as well. The first one or two or more from life, but any additional time that you have, by gosh, break open your book, look at your favorite artist, and learn from them. But for this one, I want to speed up the film here because we've gone through this process many times of breaking down the construction. And I'm going to do it again for you here because it's very important. But you don't need to go through the pauses as I stopped and thought through. You can watch this progress rapidly. The one thing I am doing here that's a little bit different is, as you've seen, I've laid down a wash of tone so that I have something to work from. Tone laid in there. And this is Reeves lightweight cream colored paper, the paper that we've used many times in the class. I'm using an orange Prismacolor pencil to work this out. That was the normal alpha color compressed charcoal, and then what I used to rub it around was a leather chamois. I guess it's actually really suede, but I think they call it a leather chamois. You buy it at any art supply store, or at least you should be able to. I use that instead of tissue because it picks up the charcoal a little bit more strongly, spreads it around a little bit more evenly than tissue does. Okay? So now we're ready to go right into the tone, and I'm still sped up a little bit here. I've slowed it down from where we were before. It's still sped up a little bit faster than life size. Once again, you don't need to sit and have the long pauses that I had as I kind of paused to stare at my subject and think through the solutions. For you, in this demonstration, we can cut right to the chase, so we're sped up a bit here. This also will be a familiar process to you, except I'm going for it. Sargent's study there was very aggressive, big brushes, big shapes, and so I'm trying to do the same. I'm not worrying about getting out a charcoal pencil. I'm not worrying about fine line and fine detail like I sometimes do at the beginning. I'm going right in for that stick of charcoal. It's about maybe an inch and a half in length. You can see there compared to the size of my hand. And I'm treating it like it's a brush and blocking in those big dark shapes. This is going to be a similar approach to what we frequently do, hitting the dark darks to establish my landmarks, and then after I see that I'll come in and mass in my shadows. Now remember, this is different than we've often done in class. Here, there are no core shadows and there are no sharp-edged cast shadows because, once again, as we discussed in the lesson, this is a Sargent study that is done under a skylight with ambient blue skylight rather than direct white sunlight. And so as I block in my shadows, and when I say shadow, I mean anything that's not that blue ambient light hitting his forehead and a little bit on his nose as well. So still establishing my landmarks, the big shapes here, blocking them in, and working to a point where I can start massing in the big shapes of light and shadow. Now I'm also paying attention to edges here. I'm You'll notice I'm following the direction of the forms with my strokes. That still is a useful thing for me, even though I'm going to work this pretty heavily. And so with this hair, for instance, I'm watching the edges, making sure that I have the kind of appropriate hard and soft edges in there. For the shadow, I'm giving careful consideration to the big mass and the generalities of the tone. I don't want to get too caught up in yet. I want to keep that big simple statement, that idea that we're always discussing. Big, clear, simple statement first, and everything else is so much more likely to fall into place. And I am squinting at the picture, just like I squint from life. You might take a minute and do that while I'm working here. You might just kind of look at the image and squint your eyes way down, and you'll notice that the big massive shadow, it's lighter on his forehead, lighter around his cheek and his nose. Of course, it goes deeper in the recess of his eye sockets, of course. And on the other side of the nose, it's a little bit more of a recess, that right-hand side of his nose. I'm looking at the image, the original, and it also gets darker as it moves down and the chin curves around, the lower part of the cheek and then curving around under the chin. If you squint down, you see that that graduates darker under there. And so that's the kind of tone that I'm applying here. And I'm applying it knowing that I'm going to come back in, and yes, you see it on my fingers there, and that's my approach. That is my unfortunate approach that guarantees that my style will be unique, because no one else in the world would ever want to do that. But this is the good news about this process, or I should these principles. You can use whatever technique you want, whatever technique you're comfortable with, as long as you get the right value statement. I should say it this way, as a matter of fact, as long as you get the right draftsmanship and the right value statement and the right edge statement. If you get those three things, it doesn't matter what technique you use.